This is NBK, nothing but Knicks. When Sim passed the assist, you know that it's #1 show that breaks down the game. If you can't play defense, stay out my way. Dribble the ball, come down the lane. 5 seconds on the shot clock, who gon' win us the game? You wanna hear Nick updates and trade rumors? Post-game reviews, this the place you tune in. So tell a friend just to keep the ball moving. Like the page if you feeling the movement. Every game we coming to win. Give us a sub like a player that came off the bench. This is NBK, nothing but Knicks.
Knicks family, what's poppin'? It's your boy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, you're having a really, really good work week so far. I know yesterday, I was supposed to be on yesterday, but had a couple of meetings, or not a couple of meetings. I had one meeting in particular that I had to prepare for, so I wasn't able to jump on yesterday, but I'm here today, in Louis yesterday, and I got my man Andy in the building. We're going to break down some more teams that we're going to, that the Knicks will maybe trade with or do some kind of negotiations with during the offseason, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to talk about a couple of those teams. First team we're going to talk about is the San Antonio Spurs. So let me get my guy Andy in the building, start breaking some things down. Andy, what's popping with you today, man? Looking forward to this episode, talking about the Spurs, the Toronto Raptors, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, and how they might deal with the Knicks. What's up? What's going on, man?
What up, Sim? Happy to be on with you. Salute to the chat. I see familiar names from every show that we do. Like you said, this is the third episode that we're doing about these trade partners for potential Knicks offseason, players and teams. Happy to do it with you. We got a couple of good teams today. Possible moves being made. Let's dig into it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yes, this is the third episode. And listen, there's a lot of teams that the Knicks could deal with, but I think the teams that we're mentioning are the likely teams that the Knicks would deal with, right?
Yeah. It looks like, we're, trying to get the possibilities done for the Knicks brass, trying to open up their eyes. Maybe, they're gonna
Right.
listen. They're gonna listen to it.
Maybe they're gonna listen.
Yeah, but yeah, to be serious, Sim, we try to put our GM hats on and try to make the franchise and the team better. So
Yeah, without a doubt. So let's start with the Spurs, because as we all know, the Knicks, the Spurs have the first pick in the draft, and Victor Wembanyama is, I don't even want to say likely, is going to be their draft pick, right? And because of that, a lot of people believe, because he's French, right?
yes.
Right, he's French. So a lot of people believe someone like Evan Fournier would be a very good fit for the San Antonio Spurs to help Victor transition to the U.S. And people believe that Evan Fournier would be a very good fit with Greg Popovich. I don't disagree with him. When you look at the way that Evan Fournier handled his benching, this is what Tom Thibodeau believes is best for the team. I do feel he'd be a good fit with Pop. Pop would probably use him very well. And I'm sure Pop likes to have guys around that want to do whatever the team needs that player to do to win. And Fournier seems like to be that kind of guy, right? So I think there's the natural assumption that Fournier would fit in San Antonio, and that Greg Popovich would like Evan Fournier, and he would be able to kind of mentor and be Victor's vet coming into the league. Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think it's something San Antonio would do? They're going to have $57.5 million in cap space, so it'd be nothing for them to eat up Evan Fournier's $19 million.
I agree totally, Sim. Not to mention, because you just said about the mentoring for Victor Wembanyama, right? As a French player, young French player to old savvy vet being around the league on a couple of teams in different situations,
Mm-hmm.
probably season. What we gotta, take a better perspective on it. To be true, the Spurs don't have that many vets all around on their team.
No.
There's Dougie McDermott, Devontae Graham, which I don't know you can call a vet that can be around that team. You got some spare contracts there, but the rest of the guys are really young guys. The
Mm-hmm.
biggest contract in Keldon Johnson. He signed through the next 4 seasons.
Yeah. Like
But
20 million a year, something like that for Keldon Johnson.
yeah, something around that. What we gotta realize is that Greg Popovich is an old school coach. He knows the importance of vet players, of leaders, not only basketball wise, just leaders are off the court, in the locker rooms, as far as work ethic goes, as far as the antics in the NBA world, which we see nowadays. Some of these young players can't handle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they want to have that problem with such a talent as Victor Wembanyama is.
Right.
And who better to mentor him than another Frenchman that he probably looked up one day when he was playing for the young teams in France and stuff like that. That's why I think the Spurs are gonna make a move, definitely for a vet. Easiest one to get, probably Evan Fournier. He literally has zero value as far as a player. You can say that at least for the Knicks side because they benched him. As far as for Pops, he might have a use for him. Just being on the court with the guys, keep an old savvy veteran player on the court with all of those young guys. But he also knows how to use European players, and he knows how to use guards and set up the offense, or at least a couple of plays on and for those guys, shooting guys as easy as this one. He knows the value of Fournier. He can be a leader. He's the captain of the French national team. I think that this is a low risk move for a franchise like the Spurs because absorbing Fournier's contract, literally giving the Knicks nothing, because I don't think they're going to throw picks at us for Evan Fournier.
No.
That's not that much. But the Knicks' pro is going to be that they're not going to have Fournier on the books. The Spurs have so much salary cap space, but they're not in the moment of rebuilding the franchise that they should go for a max free agent. And Fournier's contract is only for the next season, basically. So that's a win-win situation for both teams. My question only is, are the Knicks willing to give up Fournier's salary just for nothing? Or they gonna try to use him to lure a maybe bigger salary contract player? Because we know that if the Knicks are thinking about going for a guy like Donovan Mitchell, going for any other kind of a free player that's under contract and has a higher number of contract, that Fournier's contract is going to be essential to pull out that trade.
Right. So, but let me ask you this. Let's say that the Knicks are able to trade Fournier into San Antonio's cap space,
Yes.
right? Then the Knicks are going to free up, I guess you're right, because the Knicks are going to be, if you look at it right now, the salary cap is projected at $134 million. For next season, the Knicks have $152 million on the books. Okay? If you subtract $19 million for Evan Fournier, that leaves him with just $132 million on the books. So $133 million on the books. Just $1 million below the cap space, below the salary cap. So just removing Evan Fournier doesn't really create space for the Knicks.
Sim, unless if we do that trade and we get like the how do you say it? The cap exception. What's I literally forgot what's the name. Like the
Trade
player
exception.
exemption.
Trade
Yeah, trade
exception.
exemption. Because if we would get the trade exemption of the value of Evan Fournier's contract, that way we can move trade that trade exception
Could use the
as the
trade. Yeah.
number just without the player, right?
Right.
So
Right. You know, there would have to be something there because, yeah, I guess that would work if you're just trading into that, into their salary cap. Then maybe you get that trade exception and you're able to use that trade exception. But if the Knicks do not receive a trade exception, if they make another kind of a move, then
that's just dumping a
it's
contract.
just dumping a contract, but you still won't free up cap space. So it may make more sense for the Knicks to either get back a trade exception, like you're saying, or just keep Evan Fournier until you make a move, until you can trade him for someone, you know, with a bigger contract, because you don't want to, you know, trade Evan Fournier and then you still, I mean, you can trade him just so that you're under the cap, right? And I guess that might afford you more flexibilities since you're under the cap, but you're not going to be that much under the cap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, of course, you know, you have the team option for Derrick Rose. That really doesn't get you anything either. Because when you look at that $152 million, that includes Derrick Rose, you know, or doesn't include Derrick Rose's money. So, you know, the Knicks are definitely up against it when you talk about free agency and being able to add to this team through free agency. The only person that can really add through this team through free agency is Josh Hart, which they already had Josh Hart. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure they can do some other things now. You know, you can obviously move Evan Fournier to try to get that contract absorbed. Who else has room? Indiana Pacers, they have room. Who else did we go over? There's another team. Charlotte Hornets, they have room, I believe.
Yes.
Right? So you can also work with just the same way that they did with Alec Burks and Nerlens Noel and with Kemba Walker last year, finding teams to absorb those contracts. The Knicks can do the same exact things this year if they want to try to open up some salary cap space.
Yeah,
You know,
indeed.
and that's what they would have to do. San Antonio would be a likely team that they would work with to absorb some of these salaries that the Knicks have if they want to make a play for somebody on the free agent market. All right, the San Antonio Spurs for next season have $76.5 million on the books. So they have $57.5 million in salary cap space, approximately. And so there's a lot of maneuverability there. They've got the first pick, the 33rd pick, and the 44th pick. Now, the Knicks don't have a pick in this year's draft. They do have future picks that they could move to try to help facilitate this kind of a move. I don't know if San Antonio would want. I think they would. You know, I think they would say, hey, we're helping you out. We want a pick for helping you out, even though they have the salary cap space. And they may even covet Evan Fournier. If they covet Evan Fournier, I think they would still ask for a pick.
Well, for me, Sim, I think the scenario would be, for example, with the deal with the Spurs is we wait till around that 33rd pick. And if there is a player that the Knicks want, they could easily trade Fournier and his contract for that 33rd pick. And maybe a future first round swap or whatever, just to make the trade look like we got something back, not only dump salary.
Right.
Because, you know, I think that we might try to use that contract just to get into even the late first round, just to get that one player so the Knicks, you know, fan base can have, or even the roster. Maybe not you, because we know how Tibbs is with rookies, right? He's not going to be like, oh, I'm going to put this guy straight up to the rotation. But maybe there's a plan to move one of the, you know, 13, 14, 15 player from this roster. And, you know, they're going to need one bodies for the training camp. Maybe he's going to make the cut and he's get some spot minutes like for example, Jericho Sims had this year, right?
Right. Yeah. It's definitely that's definitely a possibility. When you look at the San Antonio Spurs and their free agents, Romeo Langford has a qualifying offer. Bates Diop is an unrestricted free agent. Trey Jones is a restricted free agent. Goji Dang is an unrestricted free agent. They have a couple of a couple of two-way players, Dominic Barlow, Julian Champagne, who have qualifying offers, but nobody really significant. The Spurs basically have nothing there on the books, to be honest with you. So
Yeah,
they
that
can
that
make,
the Knicks would want probably no name stands out that is gonna be available because I don't think Jeremy Sohan, David Vassell, Keldon Johnson are guys that gonna be mentioned in trades.
no.
I don't know about Devontae Graham or Dougie McDermott, but still, I think they need at least 10 players in the rotation. So just playing with straight up 10 young players is not a thing that Pop is gonna try
Yeah.
to go with. I
Yeah.
think he's gonna want at least 3-4 vets
Oh,
on
yeah.
that roster.
I could see that. Because right now, when you look at their roster for next season, Doug McDermott, $13.7 million. Devontae Graham, $12.1 million. And he's also on the books for 24-25 for $12.6 million. Zach Collins has a qualifying offer. I don't know why I didn't have him up here on the free agents, but a qualifying offer. I'm sorry, a team option for Zach Collins. Ken Burke, $6.9 million. Romeo Langford, as you see, qualifying offer for $7.8 million. Jeremy Sohan, he's on the books for $5.3 million. Then the next season there's a team option for 5.5, and then a team option the next season for $7 million, and then a qualifying offer in 26-27 for $9.6 million. Devin Vassell is on the books for $5.8 million. Josh Primo, $4.3. Keldon Johnson, he's on the books for $20 million next year, and then his contract descends $19 million, $17.5, and then $17.5. You got Malachi Branham, Charles Basie, Blake Wesley, and these are small contracts: $3 million, $2.6, $2.5. So they really don't have. They almost have a blank canvas.
And Sim, when you read off those names, I think when you bring up a guy like Fournier to that roster, literally 95% of that roster is still going to look up to him as the vet, as the guy that was around the league, that knows the ropes. I don't think, even though Keldon Johnson got a contract extension done last season, I don't think he's going to be the guy that a guy like Victor Wembanyama is going to look up to, right? I think, you clearly need a savvy vet on the team, not saying only basketball-wise, but rather all the thing around. And I don't know if you saw it, I retweeted a great video, short video of Pops teaching on a FIBA conference with coaches talking about leadership and stuff that the Worlds of Hoop brought to us. He cut some, great videos, added some Knicks vibes to it. So if you guys have a couple of spare minutes, just go to my Twitter account and follow me at Black Randy and look up that tweet, because Pop is speaking about leadership and about that veteran player on the roster. And I think, when you would watch that, you would easily understand why are we linking Fournier to the Spurs.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens, man. The trade deadline, I keep saying the trade deadline, the draft. The draft, I think, could be busy for the Knicks. Even though they don't have a draft pick, it could be busy. There's a lot of moves that the Knicks could make, a lot of teams the Knicks could deal with. Obviously, there's 30 teams in the league, but there's some obvious teams or some teams that you can look at and say, you can look at their salary cap situation and the free agents and their draft picks and say, yeah, the Knicks really might make a deal with these teams. The Spurs, I think, are one of them. Now, I think Josh, has a good point. He said that he thinks that the Knicks should prioritize using Fournier's money in a deal for an all-star caliber wing. If not, then visit this option. And, that might be exactly what the Knicks do. Given the fact that just moving his contract to the Spurs does not get the Knicks significantly under the salary cap threshold, like $1 million under, you know what I mean, is maybe more beneficial to use him in a trade for a wing player.
Yeah, but it's also the question about the trade exception that we can get while trading his contract. Because, for example, if I'm a team like, I don't know, Chicago, whoever, right? I rather get a trade exemption of that contract value, not even bring the player here, not even have to deal with the whole situation with him wanting to be on my team, not wanting to be causing problem because he's going to want to be in the rotation because he set it out literally the whole first year, the whole previous year. But, you just got that trade exemption that you can still use for almost a year from that trade that it happens. So I think, if trading Fournier just for salary purposes gets us a trade exception, I think that's even easier to trade that just straight up money for someone than to move even a player. And no matter, like you said, that he was a pro and he wouldn't have problems, he set out the whole previous season basically. I don't think he's gonna be willing to go to another team and being asked to sit out, that he's gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna just sit out this one too.
Right.
Because then he's all on the wall about his new contract.
Right.
This year he was certain that he's gonna get paid next year's money. Right. After this season, he needs to show something to get another NBA contract.
I agree 100% because Fournier's not done in this league. He may not have fit what Tom Thibodeau wanted, but he's not done in this league, not by a long shot, in my opinion. And I'm pretty sure there are teams that see him and say, look, this guy can still hoop. And he can still give you 18, 15, not 18 a game, 15, 14 and 15 a game, I think.
Yeah. In a certain system, in a certain situation, definitely.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So there may be a market for Fournier. There may be a market for him out there, especially since his contract will be expiring. I mean, so we'll see what happens there. San Antonio could be one of those teams where Fournier is eventually moved, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see what happens there. The next team we want to talk about are the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors, they have some notable free agents available. Fred VanVleet, he's an unrestricted free agent. Gary Trent Jr., a guy that, a lot of fans have coveted Gary Trent Jr. A lot of Knicks fans have coveted Gary Trent Jr. He's a free agent with a player option. And Fred VanVleet also has a player option. I don't think Fred VanVleet picks up his player option. I'm not sure about Gary Trent Jr. Right? Fred VanVleet is owed, he has a player option for $22.8 million. Gary Trent Jr. has a player option for $18.5 million. They could both opt out and become unrestricted free agents. They could both choose to pick up their options and continue on with the Toronto Raptors. Let's start with Fred VanVleet. Andy, what does Fred VanVleet do?
Oh, he's definitely not picking up that option. No. And question is he will be, being willing to return to the Raptors even? One, he doesn't have his coach in Nick Nurse. He's being moved and he signed a deal with the 76ers, which can be also a possibility for Fred VanVleet. Looking at the roster, if they have a situation that James Harden moves somewhere else in free agency, that guard spot alongside, Tyrese Maxey is totally open for him.
Yeah.
And I actually think that, him being comfortable with the coach from the past and and Nick Nurse, I think that might be a good match for those guys.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, he's already declined his player option.
Yeah, I was thinking so. I wasn't sure, but yeah.
Yeah, he's already declined the option. So with that being said, the Raptors they have $143.8 million on the books for 23-24, approximately $10 million over the projected salary cap. And that includes the player options of Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. Now that Fred VanVleet has opted out, that goes down to about $120 million, somewhere around there, $121 million.
It's going to be like 10 on under, right? So
yeah, about $10 million under now that Fred VanVleet has opted out of his contract. Still not enough to. I mean, I guess they can go over the cap to sign him. So I guess they've got to survey where they are. Do they want to go over the cap to sign Fred VanVleet? Do you want to go over the cap to re-sign Gary Trent Jr.? Because if you re-sign both of them, if you re-sign them at their player options, you're over the cap, which would basically inhibit what you can do in free agency and certain moves that you can make, et cetera, et cetera. They wouldn't reach that apron, which is projected to be about 165 or something like that. 165, 167, somewhere around there. They wouldn't reach that apron, so they'd be clear of the tax, but they'd still be over the cap. And I don't know if their team is good enough to warrant being over the cap in that way and to restrict yourself in free agency or in other areas. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think happens with Fred VanVleet? Because there's some places out there that I could see him going where he'd be a nice fit.
Yeah, easily I could see, and probably I think when I'm in his shoes, I would consider looking for another destination than the Toronto Raptors. Why? We clearly saw that team wasn't that good the last season, and I don't think they can improve actually, except for that 13 draft pick, to be a way better team, to be easily called a playoff team next season, even if they resign all, right? We saw that they had problems, some chemistry issues with Siakam. The coach left. They got a rookie coach from abroad, because he's if I'm correct, he's Serbian. So Danilo Rajkovic, if I'm correct, he was an assistant for a couple of teams in the NBA, but still rookie coach as far as head coaching jobs. So the question is how the situation is looking in that locker room, because if a guy like VanVleet moves, I think the Raptors got to consider moving way more players, because we heard also OG wasn't happy about his role. We saw Siakam clearly having problems on the bench, like literally the same problems that Julius had 2 or 3 years ago. So I think that's a situation that you would want to clear up before you make extensions for next several seasons, right? And the only guy that's probably going to stay, it's not going to move, is going to be Scotty Barnes, because he's on a rookie scale contract, and I don't think he has the the power as far as player to ask for favors and bringing players in and stuff like that. I don't think he has that kind of cachet.
Right. And the Raptors, they don't really they have one contract that extends beyond 2024, 2025. Right. And that is Scotty Barnes. And that's a qualifying offer for 24, 25. They have a team option. A qualifying offer for 25, 26 and a team option for 24, 25. Right. So when you look at the Raptors, after next season, they have a clean slate for the most part, unless they've signed Fred VanVleet to a longer contract or signed Gary Trent Jr. to a longer contract. They have a pretty clean slate.
Yeah, they can do a quick turnaround here.
Yeah, I mean, OG Anunoby has a player option for 24-25 of $19.9 million. He makes $18.6 in 23-24. Gary Trent Jr., as we mentioned, has a player option this season of $18.5. We'll figure out what he's going to do. Chris Boucher is on the books for 11.7 for 23-24 and 10.8 for 24-25. Jacob Poeltl, he's a free agent. Thaddeus Young is on the books for next season for $8 million. We just talked about Scotty Barnes' contract. You got Otto Porter is on the books next season for 6.3. Precious Achiuwa, he's on the books next season for 4.3, and then there's a qualifying offer for 6.2 for 24-25. Juan Hernan Gomez, he's a free agent. Malachi Flynn is on the books for 3.8 for next season. Steve McCall, free agent.
That's only his contract. That's only his contract,
right. Delano Banton, he's a free agent. Christian Colaco, hopefully I said his name correctly. He's on the books till 24-25. Small contract, 1.7 and $2 million. Everything else is small contracts. So they can, right now for 24-25, they have $32.7 million on the books. And if I'm the Toronto Raptors, I'm looking at that year and saying, you know what? We might want to break down. I guess you would be tanking in 23-24 so you can get your draft pick, high draft pick. They got the 13th pick this year and kind of start over. I think I would start over if I was the Raptors. Because I don't know. I don't see them. If Fred VanVleet goes, I don't see them being a title contending team with Pascal Siakam. His contract, he makes $37.8 million next season, and Gary Trent Jr., those guys. I would start building around Scotty Barnes. Or with Scotty Barnes.
Let me throw a curveball at you with the Raptors here. Only other way the Raptors could do it just to withstand like these 2-3 next seasons, if they get a young player, it can be on an extended contract already, but just to ride it out so they're not like literally top 3 in the next few years in the draft. And a name that clearly comes into mind when you think about the Knicks is their own RJ Barrett.
I knew that was coming up. I was going to ask the question myself. And just I know that's going to sound even worse, that if you even bring him for even a deal around Gary Trent or OG Anunoby or whatever of those guys that will be the 3rd, 4th tier on the Knicks, he's not that good that he's going to lead the Raptors to like the play-ins or the playoffs. Right. RJ would, even with Siakam, right? They don't have that power to move the Raptors to the playoffs unless RJ makes a huge step, and I don't think that's the case here. So I mean, listen, but you would be building with RJ and Scotty Barnes. I don't know. I think if they went that route, I don't know if it would be Siakam. I think they try to move Siakam. I don't know if they can.
They could sim, but they can move Siakam in another deal. I don't think the Knicks would want Siakam around Randall, right? Because I don't think that's a great fit. Mm-mm. But they can, trade, for example, OG to the Knicks. Like there were plenty of rumors at the trade deadline, so they can move OG in that kind of a deal. Then move Siakam for future first round picks, for example, to the Blazers, wherever, right? Get Anthony Simmons, right? Get Simmons here. Get RJ, get Barnes, and now you have at least a couple of young guys that's still gonna, block your salary cap for like 70 million, right? 80 million. And you still got, pieces to add, but you have at least a young core that you're thinking that maybe if these guys pop, we got a faster chance to turn this rebuild around.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things go with the Raptors. I believe if VanVleet leaves, I think they start over.
Yeah.
If he stays, and maybe they feel like they build around VanVleet, well, not around him, but with him, like he's their point guard. You know what I mean? And they're building around Scotty Barnes, I guess. But, VanVleet is the point guard around Scotty Barnes. You know what I mean? They might look to go in that route. But I think if he leaves, Chris Paul ain't going to Toronto, and that would be a bad move. Chris Paul's 38 years old. That wouldn't make any sense. What other point guard are you bringing there at this point to
Right.
make that thing run?
And for me, Sim, even if they resign Van Fleet, I think that's just delaying the tear down of this team for like 3-4 seasons.
Right.
So
I agree. And I think Ujiri is smart enough to see that. Which players would you want?
Unless he moves also.
Unless he moves. Right. Unless he moves. He's like, forget this. I'm out of here.
Yeah. I did what I could do.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, who would you want from Toronto on the Knicks? I think two names are going to jump out at people, but I want to hear from you. Who would you want?
Well, Sim, I'm not going to lie. I think Gary Trent Jr. is the name that would probably fit this roster the most, but I'm still not trading RG for him. They can have Gary Trent Jr. for a guy like Obi and Quickly, but I'm not trading RG for him.
Right.
I think, and the same would probably go with OG. OG is a good player, probably would fit in the starting lineup better than RJ. But I still think the Raptors wouldn't do a deal 1-for-1, and I'm afraid about OG's injury history. I really feel that with a coach like Tibbs, and that's not meaning that he's running players down to the ground and stuff like that, but we gotta realize that the Knicks last season results in the regular season were thanks to all three main guys playing most of the season. And most, I mean like 70 or more games. I think Julius missed like a couple of games, right? And RG the same thing. And I think that's really important as far as building a team with a new point guard and stuff like that with Jalen. I think that's really, really, really important for main guys to not be injury prone and to try to make a regular season result. That meaning making the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think those two names are the guys that most people would target from this particular team. I don't know. I don't know if the Knicks are, will they even have the money for Gary Trent Jr. unless it's a sign and trade. Right? That's the only way that I see them bringing in either one of those two players. Obviously, OG Anunoby's not a free agent this summer, so that would have to be through trade if they brought in OG Anunoby. Yeah. And to be honest with you, I just don't know if a straight-up trade of OG and RJ takes the Knicks anywhere.
Yeah, I'm just saying that he might fit the starting lineup a little bit better, but it's not like we're moving 2 spots in the East. So
yeah, I don't know if that goes anywhere. The only way that I see it going in anywhere is if OG was added to that lineup, and then does it really fit? If you're adding OG to RJ, Brunson, and Randall, does it really work? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. And if you're just doing a swap of the two, I don't see it really working.
Yeah.
I mean, let me not say that. I see it working. I don't see the Knicks getting better.
Listen, for me, in every these episodes that we do with trade partners, I think even as a GM looking at the Knicks roster, first thing that stands out for me is like they got to move Obi, and Obi is going to be a cheap guy to move because they realize that they're not going to give him an extension because he's playing minor minutes behind Julius, and that is not going to change unless they trade Julius.
Right.
And I don't think that's on the table currently. So they are looking on Obi like maybe he's going to pop on our roster. Maybe he's going to fit our offense a little bit better. Right. And with that being said, the same situation is with IQ. He's due to a contract extension. Are they willing to pay him that kind of a money which he wants? And if not, are we going to be able to give him that kind of a salary or the role that he envisions himself in? Because we know that he's not going to get minutes from Jalen Brunson.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be the backup. And I think quickly will take literally 3 million less on a yearly basis just to have a bigger role than to play behind Jalen Brunson.
Right.
So if they, for example, look at the Knicks roster and say, like, listen, we can have 2 young guys on extended contracts that we can negotiate for just giving out a contract for Gary Trent because he was going to leave us, right? But we can resign him and trade him in a sign and trade. We're going to just do this guy a favor, but we're not going to lose him for nothing.
Right.
So that might be the sense that teams are looking at the Knicks, and that would be what I would be looking as a GM from outside. I would move these 2 guys, get those 2 guys, and not to mention that they have chemistry together. They play really well together. So I'm getting a tandem of guys, even if I have to, play one off the bench, but I'm going to mesh their minutes. So they're going to be playing together on the court in certain minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I could easily see, Ujiri doing a move like that. Gary, what number you want? What you want? 20 million? Cool. I can give you 20 million if the Knicks, are going to be willing to do this deal for me. You're going to go to the Knicks. I'm going to get 2 young players. You're going to have, even probably starting minutes because Grimes is going to get moved to the bench, and let the Knicks figure out the rest of the bench players.
Yeah. Fournier has to go in that move, in my opinion, somehow, some way, because if you still have Fournier, if Fournier doesn't go in that move, he has to go in another move because the Knicks, with Fournier on the roster, the Knicks are at 152 million. If you add another 20, now you're over the apron. Now you're talking luxury tax.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That's not happening.
Yeah, and Sim, that's why I said, in the first episode that I see the Knicks or staying pat and not doing nothing, waiting to the trade deadline with these moves, and the same players' names is going to come up: Fournier, Obi, and Quickly.
Yeah.
Because D-Rose, we can just skip him, and he's going to be, lose weight, cut 2 days after the draft night.
Yeah.
If we don't make a move.
Yeah.
But the rest of these guys, other draft night, first days of free agency, or it's gonna be trade deadline. I don't see those guys being extended that long.
Right. Because even if you add Obi and Quickly or whoever else, you still got to add more. They got to add more money to match the salaries. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
you're still looking like it's gonna be over that. Yeah, it would have to be Fournier that went in the trade. It would have to be, to be honest with you.
And
you don't want to move rotation players. And I guess if it's done at the, if it's done during the draft, you can include Derrick Rose.
Yeah, because his contract is going to be due 2 days after the draft day.
Right.
So
that deal would have to happen. It would. I don't know when the opt out is for Gary Trent Jr. or when he's required to opt out.
All these days is like two days after the draft day. So that's why they got contracts that they can be moved on the draft day and then they can still opt out. So it's like working for both the player and the team.
So if the Knicks were to make a move for Gary Trent Jr., then they would have to negotiate the contract.
But they would have
Gary
literally
Trent.
like a day or two, right?
Right.
So,
right. Or he would opt out of the contract and he'd become a free agent, and then they would have to negotiate.
Yeah. That's why I said, Sim, that it's going to be like we're going to do any moves, literally nothing, or we're just going to wait till the first days of free agency to make sign and trade deals, or it's going to be trade deadline. But it's still going to be a series of moves. It has to be like 2-3 trades to get space, then to move people, and then the third one just to fill out the needs that the Knicks are gonna get after those moves.
Right.
So I don't think it's gonna be like one deal that we're gonna send two players here, get two players back, and that's gonna be enough. It's going to be it will have to be like 2 or 3 trades.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple of moves. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's the Toronto Raptors. A team that the Knicks could deal with. The Raptors could be looking to break it down, and move on from VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. and OG Anunoby. And I'm sure they would have some guys they want to keep. OG may be one of them. Pascal Siakam, I think they'd move on because he has a large contract for the next year, for next season. Interesting stuff right there, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting stuff. Before I move on to, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. Before I talk about the Timberwolves, or we talk about the Timberwolves, I do want to remind you we have 2 great summer events going on. All right, we got the draft party on next Thursday, June 22nd. It's going to be at Legends. Then the next weekend, we have a cookout. It's going to be outside of Albany, New York. So if you can make it, we want you to come out. It's going to be dope. We're going to have a lot of fun. We got, regular games that you play at cookouts going on. We play some basketball games, 3-on-3, 2-on-2, 5-on-5. Some free throw shooting contests, 3-point shooting contests. We're going to do all of that. We're going to have a good time. You know what I mean? So I want you to join us up there. The link is pinned to the top of your YouTube chat, and I just put the link in the chat again so that you can join us at both of those events or one of the 2 events. All right? It's going to be pretty dope. And for the cookout, if you plan on purchasing the package that includes a T-shirt, I need you to do it by Thursday because I got to get those T-shirts ordered. All right? So make sure you jump on that, folks. The link is in your YouTube chat. It's also in the description of the video. So, anything else you want to say about the Raptors, Andy?
Well, I was also looking at the 13th pick, but I don't think we have anything that the Raptors would want from the Knicks that would make Ujiri unless it's like several first round picks from the future for this 13th round pick, for this year's 13th pick.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see this Knicks management being, so viable to give up several picks for just one at this draft. So
I don't think so.
I don't see that happening.
All right. Now let's talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I don't know what the Timberwolves are going to do either. You know what I mean? When you look at, this roster, and they made a huge mistake, I think.
Oh.
In trading for Rudy Gobert. I think they made a huge mistake. And they gave up a lot to get him. You know what I mean? And it just looks like they're stuck right now. And probably not moving forward or getting better. What is your thoughts on the Raptors? I mean, the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Well, I think, like you said, the move for Gobert was really bad. Looking at what a plethora of players, not only players, but also picks they had to give up. Because it was like 3 or 4 first-round picks and players. And the players, they weren't bums. There were players that made the rotation, that stayed with the Jazz, and we saw that the Jazz had quite a successful season with those guys. We were thinking that they're gonna scrap it up, tear it down till the bone, but it still looked like they were happy. And at the beginning of the season, I think after 20 games, they were one of the top seeds in the West.
Yeah,
So
at the beginning of the season, they were.
Yeah, that wasn't looking that bad. I think also they didn't, they looked probably at the box scores, the stats, and they were thinking that this combination of Rudy Gobert and Cat is going to work. And I think real life basketball showed them that it's not only about the numbers and the stats scores, stats sheets, and whatever. Some guys are just not going to mesh well together on the court.
Right.
And looking that, both of these guys had injuries this season and didn't play that many games together. But when they did, it really looked terrible. So I think they got to move on from at least one of those guys. I don't think they're going to move on from Gobert because nobody's going to give him the hold that they gave up for him. So I think that price is going to be way too high unless they're going to be, going to be called, that they made a really bad trade. And I think it's still too early to like give up on Gobert. So for me, I'm thinking they're going to try to move on from Cat. And we know that Cat, with his ties to New Jersey, being a Knicks fan from his childhood and stuff like that, is going to be tied with the Knicks. I'm not a fan of Cat as maybe not a player, but he's kind of soft for me. I said it on Ron's show on Still Nick Fans that I didn't want to use the word soft around Cat, but I think that's the truth. I don't think you can find any better word to describe him, actually. Looking at the New York media, I think, he would have problems with those guys. And I, as long as you look at the numbers from Karl Anthony Towns, they're great. Really good, great numbers, efficient numbers even, and stuff like that. But he has nothing as far as, winning goes for those numbers. So it's just hard for me to be cheering after a deal that we do for Cat. Just thinking on it, I would envision that we have to give up Julius Randle or RJ Barrett and a plethora of picks alongside one of those guys just to get Cat here. And I don't think that's going to make us, a better team.
Right. See, I feel like this. If you give up Julius Randle for Karl Anthony Towns, you're basically,
right.
I think you're the same team. You know what I mean? Because he's gonna be next to. Oh, wait a minute. I lost our videos on the screen for a second, Andy. Let me make sure I get them back. They can hear us, but for some reason I lost our videos on the screen. I'm gonna make sure I get those back up there. There we go. All right, we back. Oh, we back in business now. But I feel like trading Julius Randle for Karl Anthony Towns. It's going to be the same dynamic between Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson, right? Except now you have Karl Anthony Towns. And I know Karl Anthony Towns is better from the three-point line than Randle, but who are you opening the floor up for? Randle is decent enough from the three-point line, but you're not using Mitch down low. You know what I'm saying? So who are you opening the floor up for? I guess maybe you open it up a little bit more for RJ and for Brunson, but not that much more. So I think if Karl Anthony Towns is willing to play a center position, maybe Randle and Cat work next to each other if he's willing to play a center position because he can shoot the three. But then, of course, you're losing some stuff on defense because of Mitchell Robinson is a better defender than Karl Anthony Towns. They can both rebound the ball. Cat is probably a better rebounder. They can both block shots, but just offensive rebounding, obviously Mitchell Robinson is better. But I don't know. I think you probably lose something defensively. So I don't know if that's actually a good move for the Knicks. If you move Mitchell Robinson for Cat. You know what I mean? And to me, that's the best fit. Having Randle and Karl Anthony Towns because Karl Anthony Towns can play that center position. Now, if you look at Minnesota, they don't have a first round draft pick. All right, they get the 16th pick. They got to send it over to Utah. They got the Knicks 53rd pick. All right, from the Knicks. They got $142 million on the books for 23-24. Approximately $8 million over the salary cap. Free agents, Nas Reed, he's a free agent. Austin Rivers, Jalen Noel, Luka Garza, Nathan Wright, Nikhil Alexander Walker has a qualifying offer. Luka Garza has a qualifying offer as well. Is there anyone else from Minnesota that you would rather have other than Karl Anthony Towns? Nas Reed, a lot of people talk about Nas Reed.
Yeah, him as a backup, sure. I think his salary is not going to be that high. So, just replacing a guy like Jericho Sims with Nas Reed, I think he would battle, at least probably get into the rotation for at least a couple of minutes, maybe at the power forward position even. Bigger body around, Isaiah Hartenstein might be a better fit than Obi, actually. But from guys that they have on the roster under contract for next season, and those would be expiring contracts, I see two names, basically two, because I don't think Jaden McDaniels is going to be available, so I'm going to skip him. But there's Mike Conley and Kyle Anderson. I'm not saying that, those are my favorite players, top tier on my list for this offseason. But we saw Kyle Anderson having problems with Rudy Gobert as far as, chemistry on the bench. I think it's not like he's going to ask to be moved. But if I'm a GM and I know that two players don't go well together, I would try to resolve that situation before it gets worse. So maybe Kyle Anderson has an expiring contract. Straight up for a guy like Obi could work in a deal. Or again, you would have to add something more or add a guy like Evan Fournier for a guy like Mike Conley. And the question there is Tibbs going to use those guys into rotation? I believe both of those guys would be into rotation if you trade, Obi or Evan Fournier for those guys. I think, Mike Conley is a vet player that would definitely, have trust from day one as far as coming, to the Knicks, probably coming from the bench, because I'm not saying that he would be, playing in the starting lineup by any means, but having a ball handler, point guard, that could be a really good extension of the coach on the floor. I think that would make Tibbs happy.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be honest with you, the whole thing about Karl Anthony Towns is probably more media generated.
Yeah,
because of CAA and Karl Anthony Towns has been linked to the Knicks for so long. I don't know if there's any real legs to it, but
listen, with Karl Anthony Towns also, Tibbs coached him. So he knows everything and even more than the media, than the fans and whoever. And if he wanted Cat, he would say, like, listen, you can trade Julius, you can trade this guy, that guy, because I feel good with Cat. I don't think that's going to be the case in this situation.
Right. And Cat, he's got a long contract. If you, you trade for Cat, you're doing you're banking that this guy is going to be able to get you there. You know what I mean? $36 million.
You're putting a franchise tag on him. So.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. $36 million in 23-24. That's not bad. 24-25, $50 million. 25-26, $54 million. And 26-27, $58 million.
That's twice as much as Jalen Brunson is going to get those years. Yeah. So,
yeah, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for the dude. That's going to make it hard for them to trade Cat, I think. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher to trade him. If the Knicks trade for him, they're banking that this guy's going to win him a championship or get him to the NBA Finals at the very least. I don't know if he's that guy that does that. Because right now the Knicks have good contracts as far as money-wise. Really good contracts. And I feel like the players so far with Randall and with Brunson, RJ Barrett hasn't started his extension yet. That'll start next season. But with Randall and Brunson, they've outplayed their contracts, in my opinion. Especially Brunson. He's especially outplayed his contract. And then, Randall, like what he did in the playoffs or not, he's going to make $25 million next season. He made $23.7 million this season. This season that just passed. He'll make 25.6 next season. Then he'll make 27 and 24, 25. Like, that's a really, really good contract for a guy who made the All-NBA team. You know what I mean? RJ, his contract, his extension starts next season. Tonight, we're going to talk about RJ and if the pressure is on him now that his extension has started, or it'll start July 1st, I guess. We're going to talk about that tonight. He makes $23.8 million next season. Then he makes $25.7 in 24-25, $27.7 in 25-26, and then $29.6 in 26-27. So for the Knicks' 3 top players next season, Jalen Brunson, 26.3, Julius Randle, 25.6, and RJ Barrett, 23.8. That's not bad, to be honest with you. I mean, when you look at other teams that made it to the second round and were eliminated and how much they paid their top 3 players, it's a big difference.
Oh, that's totally true, Sim. But what do you think about the other guys on the bench? That Conley or Kyle Anderson? Any chance you would make a move for those guys?
How much does Mike Conley make?
24.3.
Oh man, see, I wouldn't mind having a Mike Conley on the team. It is an expiring contract. I wouldn't mind having Mike Conley on the team. The same way I wouldn't mind having CP3 on the team. With what they can bring, that backup ball handler, good experience, good basketball IQ. I definitely wouldn't mind having Mike Conley on the books. Now, what you would have to do is you'd be paying him 24.3. He'd, I guess, take Fournier's spot. You'd pay him 24.3, but the contract would be expiring.
Yeah. And you could use him, actually.
And you can use him.
If you're Tibbs. So.
Yeah, and you can use him. Who else would I be interested in? I mean, I'd be interested in Jaden McDaniels. I know the Knicks aren't going to get Jaden McDaniels, but I'd be interested in that guy big time.
Yeah, I skipped him at the beginning because you would have to trade literally RJ for him, so to make those guys happy. So
who else did you mention? That
Kyle Anderson, slow mo.
Oh, slow mo. Oh man. I'll
tell you soon one.
I don't know.
One thing I would say about slow mo. I think Tibbs would trust him more than Obi. I'll tell you that. And that's plenty of, things that you could say about him and a tandem with Tibbs, right? If you're going to get trusted more than Obi, I think you would he might even use him a couple of minutes more.
Yeah. Man, I'm not going to lie. Slow-mo gets it done. Somehow, some way, he gets some work done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just like Jokic.
Just like Jokic.
Somehow, some way,
he gets it done. I guess I wouldn't mind Kyle Anderson. How tall is Kyle Anderson?
Oh, he's like 6'9". 6'9".
Like 6'9". He's 6'9", yeah.
Got that 6'9". Fade stiff, though.
What'd you say?
He got that fade stiff, with the haircut. Because he doesn't look that tall.
Yeah. I think, though, if I was going to target anyone from Minnesota, it would probably be Naz Reid.
Yeah.
To come in and play some backup center or power forward, however he's defined. I think I would target that guy if there's anyone else. Mike Conley, I don't know. It's something I think about. You know what I mean?
Well, it's just look at the deals that even we're talking about today. You can send Fournier to the Spurs for nothing. but you can get a guy like probably Conley, and you can put him in the rotation.
Right.
Even if you get a trade exception for Fournier, that trade exception isn't going to give you anything in the scoreboard.
Right. Exactly.
So that's the thing. If there's like two options on the table, you can do this one, you can do that one. You got to be like, listen, you got to ask the coach, listen, if you're going to use him and if you think that this is going to make the roster and the team better, we're going to make this deal instead of just that one and still wait and maybe there's going to be someone available and stuff like that.
Right.
If there's going to be someone available, you're still going to be able to move Mike Conley as a salary dump.
Mm-hmm.
If you do the deal on draft night or at the beginning of the free agency,
Right.
You're going to be able to move him at the deadline. So,
yeah. You never know, man. You never know. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's it for tonight. We'll be back on Friday. I want to cover Friday, Andy. I want to cover players, undrafted free agents, undrafted rookies that the Knicks may have some interest in. Talk about some guys who showed up in training camp this week. Kai Soto is one of those guys. Not training camp, but mini camp for the Knicks. All right, Kai Soto is one of those guys. So, I want to get into some of that on Friday, bring up some guys the Knicks maybe should target as undrafted rookies, add to the end of the bench or just bring them into training camp. You know what I mean? Because after next week, of course, a week and a half later or so, the Summer League will start. Who the Knicks going to have on Summer League? I don't know. I have no clue who the Knicks are going to have playing in Summer League. You know what I mean? Kai Soto would be
McBride
a good
and
guy.
Jericho Sims.
Yeah, B. McBride and Jericho Sims. Kai Soto would be a good guy to bring in. Bring him in. He's 7'3" guy.
Yeah.
He's shown some footwork, the ability to shoot the ball, post up a little bit. He's shown that he has some ability. Might be a good guy to bring in. Plus, you're going to get you're going to grow your fan base. You know what I mean? But we'll talk about some guys the Knicks could take a look at to add to Summer League. Maybe sign an undrafted rookie, things like that. Other than that, anything else, Andy?
No, probably see you Friday. After that, I hope we're going to squeeze in a show on Monday because from Tuesday, I'm going to be out on vacation for a week. So,
okay. Yeah, we'll squeeze one in there. We'll definitely get one in there. You know what I mean? We'll get one in there. All right. Well, Andy, I appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to remind you that we have those 2 great events that's going to be going on within the next couple of weeks. We want to see you there. All right. We got the draft party next Thursday at Legends. Make sure you come out. I think the Knicks are going to do something during the draft. So you're not going to want to miss that if they do something. All right, come join us. We'll do some podcasting from Legends. We'll watch the draft together and have a good time. The link is pinned to the top of your YouTube chat. It's also in the description of this video. So make sure you check us out. The same link will take you to the cookout, our first annual summer cookouts right outside of Albany, New York. It's going to be dope, ladies and gentlemen. Basketball games, just regular cookout games. Obviously, there's going to be food there. We're going to be doing some podcasting, live videos, creating content, and just enjoying each other as friends. So
maybe Big Bubba's going to be on the grill.
Yeah, Big Bubba's going to be on the grill. You know what I mean?
Grilling food, not roasting people. Don't worry about that. You guys know him.
Right. You know what I mean? And we'll have the fire department on tap just in case, because Big Bubba, how he does. So make sure you join us. The link again in the description of the video, pinned to the top of your YouTube chat. We'd love to see you there, folks. With that being said, out of here. Peace.
This is NBK, nothing but Knicks. When Sim passed the assist, you know that it's #1 show that breaks down the game. If you can't play defense, stay out my way. Dribble the ball, come down the lane. 5 seconds on the shot clock, who gon' win us the game? You wanna hear Nick updates and trade rumors? Post-game reviews, this the place you tune in. Tell a friend just to keep the ball moving. Like the page if you feeling the movement. Every game we coming to win. Give us a sub like a player that came off the bench. This is NBK, nothing but Knicks.